At the company party, my wealthy dad humiliated me. She's only a coffee shop worker. Everyone laughed, then his secretary approached me. Ma'am, we need your bank's approval for the emergency loans. My dad went pale. He will regret this. You know, someone once told me, no one gets abandoned by their own family. For years, I clung to that lie. But how do you explain being left at a desolate train station at just 16 years old with only a soda in your hand and a chilling text from your parents saying, "This is a test"? Hi, I'm Alice. And this isn't just my story. It's the story of how Jason and Linda, the two people who were supposed to be my parents, taught me that love isn't always found under the same roof. And sometimes family is just a word. When I was little, I genuinely believed all families were like mine. I thought every mom set a timer when you cried, then casually announced, "You get 3 minutes to be weak." I thought every dad sat in silence at dinner, only speaking to bark orders or unleash a shout. I believed if a child wanted to be heard, they had to hold their breath until their face turned purple just to be noticed. My dad was a former soldier and my mom, a teacher who quit her job to pour all her energy into a single mission, training me to depend on no one. They called me their first experiment, constantly reminding me that if I failed, I'd have only myself to blame. I still remember, clear as day, a brutal Minnesota winter night when I was 9. I forgot to take the trash out. A small mistake, right? Not to them. My dad quietly opened the back door, dragged me outside by my arm, and, his eyes colder than the air, said, "Stand here until you understand the value of responsibility." Then he closed the door. No coat, no shoes. It was barely above freezing. I shivered, my hands and feet quickly going numb. But I didn't dare make a sound. I just stood there for almost an hour. When my mom finally opened the door, she just looked at me and said, "Hopefully, next time you'll think twice before being useless." When I was 11, I overslept and missed the school bus. My mom flat out refused to drive me. My dad just sneered, "You made the mistake. You deal with it." So, with a backpack weighing nearly 20 pounds, I walked 6 miles to school. My feet blistered. My back was drenched in sweat. When I finally stumbled into class, nearly 2 hours late, the teacher called my mom. She simply replied, "She needs to learn not to be dependent." And then she hung up. My friends, bless their hearts, thought I was either lying or being dramatic. Some even said, "Your parents are just strict." But it wasn't strict. It was cold. It was the calculated training of a survival machine, emotionless, unloved. Every day at home was a silent war. I learned to read every flicker of emotion on my mom's face, every raised eyebrow from my dad. Anything could be an excuse for a lesson, forgetting to fold a blanket, spilling milk, laughing too loud, asking a question at the wrong time. I used to dream they'd one day hug me, tell me, "We're sorry, Alice. You didn't deserve this." But that never happened. They just kept training me. Day after day, I stopped being a child. I became a project, a doll with a calm face, even as I screamed inside. I thought I was used to it, truly. But I was wrong. Because the final lesson they gave me, when I was 15, wasn't like anything before. It changed my life forever. I'll never forget that day. The Florida sun was burning like it wanted to melt the world, and the smell of hot plastic from the car seats is still etched in my memory, like an unhealed scar. I was in the back, headphones on, half dizzy from the oppressive heat, while Jason and Linda, my parents, argued about something utterly meaningless. Like always, I didn't care. They only spoke to give orders or criticize. The rest was just background noise, loud and repetitive. Our trip to visit my cousin in Tallahassee ended with a silent dinner and a cruel remark from my mom. I don't know why she didn't pick up any grace from the other side of the family. I didn't respond. I was used to being the perpetual disappointment. Then, the car stopped. We were in a small town called Crestview, near an old train station. Paint peeled from the rooftops, faded signs barely visible under the harsh sun. Jason turned around, his eyes empty. "Go get me a soda." I took off my headphones. Linda turned, her lips curled into a crooked, unnerving smile. "Your dad's thirsty. I want a bottle of water, too." Hurry up, sweetheart. A tiny prick of doubt, like a cold needle, touched my chest. But I opened the door and stepped out. The heat blasted my face like an open oven. I walked across the cracked platform, pulled out the last $10 from my pocket, and fed it into a vending machine that groaned like it was dying. I grabbed the soda and water, turned back, and the car was gone. No cars parked nearby, just a wide, sun-scorched lot. No vehicle, no people, no sound, except for the cicadas crying like grief itself. I stood frozen, the cold soda useless in my hand. My heart hammered, my brain frantically searching for an explanation. Asterisk, maybe they just moved the car? Maybe they went to get gas, asterisk, my phone buzzed. A message. I opened it and read only 4 lines before my entire body went cold, despite the blazing heat. Let's see how long it takes you to get home on your own. This is a test. Don't call Aunt Elaine. You need to learn how to face the world. Don't disappoint us. I froze. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a joke. They had really, truly left me. No suitcase, no wallet, no map, no one. I called back, straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. Panic clawed its way up my throat like a tightening rope. I texted back, only to get one more line. Don't make a mess of things. Handle it yourself. I nearly threw up. I was 16 years old. No driver's license, no transportation, no plan. Rage began to rise beneath the suffocating fear. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, crushing the water bottle in my hand until it crumpled, then took a deep breath, as if I could exhale the nightmare right out of my chest. I checked my pockets, some loose change, a phone with 27% battery, and a crumpled paper map stuffed in the back of my backpack, something I'd accidentally kept from last year's camping trip. I walked into the station where only one old man sat behind the counter, looking half asleep. Is there a bus station nearby? I asked, my voice cracking, a lump in my throat. He raised an eyebrow, glanced out the window. About 2 miles down the main road, but nothing's coming through until tomorrow afternoon. I nodded, turned away. My feet hit the burning pavement, knees aching like they might give out. But I didn't stop. I didn't let the tears fall. Didn't scream that I'd been left behind like some kind of stray. I did the one thing they forbade me to do. I called Aunt Elaine, the only one in my family who ever looked at me with real kindness. Alice? Oh my God, what happened? Her voice startled through the second ring. They left me, I said, and for the first time in my life, my voice truly shook. She was silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then she spoke, clear and firm. Stay right where you are. I'm coming. I sat down by the dusty roadside, staring out across the red dirt. Back then, I didn't know my life had just taken a completely different path, one I would never go back on. When Aunt Elaine arrived, I was curled up under the narrow shade of a utility pole, the hot wind sweeping across the pavement, a cruel reminder that I had nowhere left to go. Her old SUV tore into the lot like time itself was burning under the tires. She jumped out before I could say anything, wrapping me in the kind of hug that made it hard to breathe. Oh my God, my poor girl. Her voice trembled, her arms clinging to me as if she was afraid to let go. What the hell did they do to you? I didn't answer. I had no words strong enough to describe what happened. But I knew one thing, I wasn't going back. Ever. 3 days later, I stood in the tiny living room of her house in Gainesville, staring at the only suitcase I had, the one she'd bought for me, because I had nothing but an old backpack. I didn't cry, I didn't panic, but it felt like a massive void had opened up in my chest. I had to fill it with something, anything, just to keep from being swallowed whole. What do you plan to do next? She asked, sitting beside me with a steaming mug of peppermint tea. I looked out the window. The sky was overcast, but no rain, just like me. Gray, but not breaking. You know I'm not going back, right? She nodded. I'm not going to push you to do anything. But if you stay here, you'll have to start from scratch. No Jason, no Linda, no more lesson plans. Just you. I nodded. For the first time, I felt like I had a choice, not just being thrown into some script someone else wrote. Even if the road ahead was rough, at least it was mine. I got a job at a small cafe near the University of Florida, just waiting tables. The owner was kind and didn't look at me like I was a broken kid. I worked from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., then came home and studied for my GED at night. I wanted to reclaim the years of school I'd missed. I wanted to go to college, not to prove anything to Jason or Linda, but to prove to myself that I could. Anna Lane helped me in every way she could. She wasn't rich, but she was rich in love, something I had never really experienced before. She drove me to my exams, waited in the car all morning, even bought me an SAT prep book, though it cost almost an entire week's worth of food for both of us. A year later, I got accepted into the University of Central Florida with a partial scholarship. The day I received that acceptance letter, I stood frozen for almost 5 minutes. "You're about to have a new life, Alice," Auntie said, taking my hand. "And this time, you get to write it." For years later, I graduated with honors in urban development. When I walked up to receive my diploma, I didn't hear the applause. I only heard the voice in my head. The voice of a 16-year-old girl standing silently under the cracked roof of a train station, hands trembling from being abandoned. And I whispered to myself, "You did it, Alice. You survived." Right after graduation, I worked for a small real estate firm in Jacksonville. I started with the jobs no one wanted: cleaning model homes, checking building permits, cold calling skeptical clients. But I learned fast. I watched everything, how people built trust and how they shattered it in a single meeting. 3 years later, I started my own thing. I took out a small loan from a local bank, combined it with years of savings from side jobs and investments, and founded Aldera Urban Living. A simple name, carrying no trace of the family I came from. I wanted a complete restart. The beginning was rough. At one point, I had only $93 left in my account and a project that got canceled at the last minute. But I held on. I learned how to negotiate, how to calculate risk, how to turn an abandoned lot into a modern housing block for young families. Little by little, Aldera stopped being a stranger's name. I hired employees. I even rehired a lawyer who once rejected me in my first year. I bought back the old office building that my first company used to own, just to remind myself that nothing is permanent, not even the lowest starting point. At 29, Aldera hit 8-figure revenue. I stood on the 12th floor balcony of our office, looking out over the Orlando skyline, and I smiled. I had once been left behind at a train station unwanted. Now, hundreds of people called me boss. I never forgot that feeling of being discarded, because it's the reason I never stopped moving forward. But I also knew the past never really dies. It only sleeps, waiting for a knock at the door. And on one summer day, that knock came. It was the past, and it came to collect me. 20 years after the day they left me like damaged goods, I stood in the glass-walled office of my downtown Orlando headquarters, on the 17th floor of the building bearing the name Aldera HQ, looking down at the busy streets below. Everything I had, every brick, every contract, every dream, was built from a pain I never chose. But I survived. I lived well. And I thought the past had rotted away forever in the shadows behind me. Until my phone rang. A name I hadn't seen in 2 decades appeared on the screen: Vivian. I let it ring until it stopped. Then it rang again, and this time I answered. "Alice." My sister's voice trembled, like it had been dragged out from a dusty pile of old memories. I didn't say anything. "Are you doing okay?" I laughed. A dry, brittle sound. "After 20 years, that's the opener you're going with?" Vivian was silent for a second. Then she said, without circling around, They're in trouble, Alice. Debt. The house was foreclosed. Mom, she's depressed. Dad." She choked. "Dad lost his entire retirement on some stupid bets. They need you." I clenched the phone, the metal digging into my palm. My heart didn't soften. It boiled. "I don't owe them anything, Vivian. But you don't have to forgive. Just help. Help." I cut her off. "Do you remember when I was 16? Remember the day they left me at that broken-down train station, with a soda can and not a single explanation? Do you? They thought you'd come back. They didn't think at all." My voice was sharp as a blade. "They never saw me as a person. I was a test, something to train. And now that they've failed, they come back like I'm some charity bank." Vivian was silent. I heard a tired sigh through the line. I just want to keep the family together. Family? I almost laughed. Family ended for me the day they locked the door and left me standing in the January rain. I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it, but I underestimated them. Jason and Linda Holloway didn't understand failure, only how to flip the table. 3 days later, Jenny, my assistant, walked into my office, her face pale. Alice, you need to see this. I took the iPad from her hands. The screen was already open to Facebook. A new post from an account named Linda Holloway. We are grieving parents. Our only daughter abandoned us when we needed her most. After everything we sacrificed, now we face illness, poverty, and loneliness. She's forgotten her blood. She chose money over family. Below were hundreds of shares, thousands of comments. So sad. Today's kids are so selfish. How could someone abandon their elderly parents? I heard she's rich. So ungrateful. I felt sick. Not from the lies, but from how smoothly they cast themselves as the victims. They knew how to perform. They always did. Some clients are asking questions, Jenny whispered. A few canceled appointments. I closed my eyes, my head pounding like a drill. They didn't just want money. They wanted to pull me back at any cost. I opened Instagram. My company's account was tagged in a series of posts with hashtags like #BadDaughter, #FilialPiety, #PayUpAlice. I smirked. If they wanted to play this game, I wasn't backing down. I posted a black and white photo of the Crestview train station, the place they left me when I was 16. The caption was a single line, "Not everyone who gives birth to you deserves to be called family." 2 minutes later, Vivian called. I didn't pick up. An hour later, Linda texted, "You've disappointed us. You owe us, Alice." I stared at the words, blood boiling like molten steel. I typed back, "No." Then, the day you drove away from that parking lot, every debt was wiped clean. Then I hit block. The screen went quiet again. Only, I knew this was just the beginning. 3 days after I posted the train station photo on Instagram, the real battle began. Every morning I woke up to dozens of new notifications, posts, comments, direct messages. Some called me ungrateful. Others labeled me a velvet-wrapped snake, wealthy, successful, but heartless. There were even videos analyzing my cold-blooded behavior based on carefully edited photos. Some TikTok influencer even made a fake clip claiming to be a former classmate, saying, "Alice once bragged, I'll abandon my parents if they stand in the way of my success." The media parasites began to swarm. I didn't care about strangers gossiping. But when my company's name started showing up in hashtags like #BoycottAldera and #Don'tBuy from the Ungrateful, I knew it had crossed the line from personal to professional. Jenny walked into my office Monday morning, her face like she'd swallowed ice. She held a stack of printed emails. "Alice, I'm sorry. Some of our partners are asking for clarification about your family situation." I clenched my fists. My family is a scar, not an investment portfolio item. Jenny placed the printouts on my desk, hesitating. 3 major clients have just delayed signing. One of them messaged me directly, "We don't want to be associated with someone being called unfilial." I let out a bitter laugh. So now it's a story about being unfilial. Fantastic. I stood up and walked to the window, where Orlando stretched out like a moving painting. The buildings I helped design, the corners I once dreamed of transforming. Now it all felt like it could collapse under one well-crafted lie and a crowd eager to point fingers. That's when my phone rang. "Hello, Dominic?" It was Dominic Hayes, one of Aldera's biggest investors. "Alice? I'll be blunt. What's happening online? It's not good for the company's image." I sighed. "What? You want me to go live and cry because I didn't send money to the people who once left me at a train station?" A pause. "I'm not judging your personal life, but we're talking about customer trust. Is there any way to ease this?" "No." "Then you need to be ready for consequences." I hung up. An hour later, a new post from Jason Holloway appeared. A photo of the two of them sitting in a dim, run-down room, eyes cast to the floor. We never meant to hurt her. Everything we taught her was to make her strong. And now, in our old age, She turns her back on us, as if we never existed. Over 12,000 shares, a wave of fake sentiment came crashing in. If it were me, I couldn't live with that kind of guilt. How can someone be so rich yet so poor in heart? Parents aren't perfect, but no one deserves to be abandoned. I wanted to smash the screen, but instead, I opened an old folder on my computer. Photos of the train station that day. Emails from the lawyer I'd contacted when I reported being abandoned. Audio files of Aunt Elaine's testimony used for temporary guardianship paperwork. I'd kept everything. Not out of hate, but because I knew they'd come back. And now they had. An emergency meeting was held that afternoon. I sat at the head of the table, facing the PR team, 2 senior managers, and our in-house attorney. No one spoke until Mike, our communications director, finally did. We advise against a public response. The more you engage, the more the media latches on. I shook my head. So, you think I should let them keep lying while this company's reputation bleeds out? Mike looked at me, his round eyes behind glasses narrowing slightly. Alice, empathy isn't something you win with logic. The public is being driven by emotion. I leaned back, hands clasped together. Then I'll use the only thing I have, truth. Cold. Detached. The same way they treated me. I pulled out a USB and plugged it into the laptop. On the screen appeared an audio clip from 20 years ago. Linda's sharp voice. If she can't find her way back, then she doesn't deserve to be my daughter. The meeting room went dead silent. I'm going to make everything public. People deserve to know, but this time, not through their lens. I stood up. They want psychological warfare? Then let me show them what it really looks like. That night, I opened my personal laptop and wrote a post. When I was 16, my parents left me at a train station. Not because it was a mistake, but because they wanted to see how I'd manage on my own. They didn't look for me for 20 years. But when I became successful, they came back. And when I said no, they created a heartbreaking tale about being abandoned. This is the first and only time I'll speak publicly. I'm not ungrateful. I'm just surviving. I hit post. Then I sat in the dark office, waiting for the second storm to hit. I was ready. Less than an hour after the post went up, my phone on the desk started lighting up nonstop like it was under attack. Notifications, messages, emails, missed calls. I sat motionless in the dark office, lit only by the glow of the laptop screen, like a spotlight aimed straight at someone who had just stepped out from backstage. The post wasn't a slap. It was a dissection, cold and precise. Every sentence cut straight through the fake narrative Jason and Linda had spent so long crafting. I attached screenshots of old messages, the one from the day they left me at the train station. Handle it yourself. This is a maturity lesson. I posted the audio recording of my mother scoffing while talking on the phone, her voice clear. I don't need to raise her anymore. Let the world teach her. I included the scanned file of my temporary guardianship documents from when Aunt Elaine took me in while my biological parents ignored my calls in the middle of a stormy night. I didn't curse. I didn't beg. I didn't use clickbait words. I just laid out the truth, raw and unapologetic. And the public began to shift. The first comment that made me stop came from a woman named Michelle P. I believed her parents' post. I'm a mother, too. But after reading what you shared, I'm horrified. No one deserves to be treated like that. Then came others. I was left at a supermarket when I was 10 just because my mom was mad. I know that feeling. If you survive that kind of upbringing, you're the strongest person I've ever seen. You're not ungrateful. You're living proof of surviving emotional abuse. By noon the next day, my post had over 3 million views. News sites started picking it up. CEO claps back with brutal truth. The truth behind the ungrateful daughter story that broke the internet. The woman who exposed her toxic parents and got the whole community behind her. I walked into the office the next morning like someone returning from war. And I wasn't walking alone. The employees who once stayed silent out of caution now greeted me with looks of quiet respect. Mike, the communications director, nodded slightly. I was wrong. Your response, perfect timing. I looked around the meeting room. The same room where they had advised me to stay quiet, to endure, to wait for the storm to pass. They wanted to make me the villain in my own story, I said. Now they've lost control of the narrative. That night, Jason and Linda responded with another video, but this time it all unraveled fast. They sat in the living room, Jason pretending to sob while Linda repeated a line like she had memorized it. We just wanted our daughter to understand that we sacrificed so much. But the clip, barely 2 minutes long, was dissected frame by internet users. Inconsistent facial expressions, fake tears, newly installed living room lights proving they weren't nearly as poor as they claimed. The comments were no longer sympathetic. They were furious, shameful, using their own child to fish for pity. Not every parent deserves forgiveness. I used to hate Alice. Now I just want to hug her. On Friday morning, Dominic Hayes called again. His tone was completely different. I want to apologize, Alice. I didn't believe you from the beginning. You don't need to apologize, I replied, cold as ice. But from now on, remember, silence is also choosing a side. I hung up. I sat back in my chair and closed my eyes. 15 years of building trust with the world, and a single lie almost burned it all down. But I held firm. And this time, no one could rewrite the truth. 3 days later, a reporter from The Atlantic sent me an interview request. The topic, the journey of an abandoned child and her public stand against emotional abuse in the family. I took a few seconds to think. Then I typed back, I'm ready. But this time, we tell the story the right way. No tears, no sugarcoating, just the truth. I hit send. And for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. No more fear, no more inner conflict. I had reclaimed my voice. I was reviewing the final design plans for the Riverstone residential project when Jenny pushed the door open, holding a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with the stamp of an express courier. Alice, this came for you. Priority delivery. Jenny's voice was tight as a string. I saw the sender's name clearly printed in the top left corner, Holloway and Brooks, attorneys at law. I already knew. I had been waiting. I opened the envelope with deliberate slowness, as if I could delay whatever was about to appear. The first page embossed my name, Alice Holloway, at the top, followed by a bold, cold, shameless heading, Official Notice of Lawsuit based on the Filial Responsibility Law, Section 7, Clause 11 of the Pennsylvania Civil Code. I froze. I had never felt so disgusted by a legal document in my life. My parents were suing me. Suing me, the daughter they abandoned at a train station when I was 16. The person they hadn't contacted for 2 decades. For failing to provide financial support in their old age. I exhaled slowly, the rage rising quietly in my chest like a fire smoldering beneath ash. Jenny, call David now. I need to see him within 30 minutes. David Rodas, my lead attorney, sat across from me, a copy of the lawsuit spread out in front of him like a rotten joke. Legally speaking, Alice, Florida doesn't have a strict filial responsibility statute. But if they filed for temporary residence in Pennsylvania or pushed this at the federal level, it could be messy. I folded my arms, eyes fixed on the page. Messy? They're trying to use the law to chain me to people who threw me away like garbage. They don't want money. They want control. David nodded slowly. They think you'll be scared. Afraid of litigation. Afraid of the media. Afraid of the shame. And if you pay just once, they'll have their hands around your neck forever. I smirked. Then they picked the wrong person. That night, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Linda's voice came through, sweet as syrup, but laced with venom. Alice, I just want to have a calm conversation. If you agree to support us financially, we can avoid unnecessary trouble. I cut her off, every word sharp as a blade. No. Do you have any idea how much we're suffering? Her voice suddenly rose. We're losing our home, our insurance, You lost your dignity a long time ago, I growled. And now you want to play the good parent. Linda went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then her tone shifted. If you fight this lawsuit, we'll take everything to the press. You really want your image tied to a filial piety case, don't you? I laughed. A cold, piercing sound that made her go quiet on the other end. Go public. Share it all. Let the world see how biological parents can abandon their child at a train station and come back 20 years later demanding money like debt collectors. I hung up and I didn't shake. Not even a little. The next morning, I summoned my legal, communications, and investor relations teams. On the table was the detailed legal response I had prepared with David. Alice Holloway denies any financial obligation under the filial responsibility statute due to complete absence of care or support from the parents over more than 2 decades. Etched evidence of abandonment, text messages, medical records documenting psychological trauma, and temporary guardianship by Aunt Elaine. I ended the meeting with one line. They chose to fight with the law. Then I'll show them what it looks like to fight with justice. That night, I posted my next statement, attaching the lawsuit. They left me when I was 16. No contact, no help, not a dime of support. Now they're suing me for money, for power, for reputation. I'm not writing this to complain. I'm writing this as a warning. Psychological wounds should never be legalized into obligation. The post spread like wildfire. Child advocacy groups, abandoned child survivor networks, everyone shared it. Lawyers, journalists, activists, all stood behind me. A new hashtag emerged, #NoObligation, trending nationwide. 3 days later, David messaged me. Their lawyers are proposing a settlement. They're starting to feel public pressure. I replied with one line, no compromise. Take it to court. Because this wasn't just a lawsuit. It was the first time I was seeking justice for that 16-year-old girl from years ago. Monday, 9 a.m. I was in a meeting with a new project team when Jenny knocked rapidly. She peeked in, pale-faced, voice trembling. Alice, you need to come downstairs right now. Something's happening. I frowned. What is it? It's Jason and Linda. They're causing a scene in the lobby and there are reporters. I stood up instantly, heart pounding, not from fear, but from rage rising like lava in my chest. I clenched my fists, nodded at Jenny. Call security, but don't do anything until I get there. When the elevator doors opened, I could already hear their familiar fake sobbing echoing through the main lobby of Aldera HQ. Linda, dressed in an overly flashy floral dress, was sitting on the floor, clutching a tissue to wipe away non-existent tears. Jason stood beside her, his face flushed red, pointing fingers at my staff, yelling nonstop, "We just want to talk to our daughter. Are we not allowed to see our own child? Is this America or a prison camp?" Around them, my employees were whispering. Some were recording on their phones. A local CNN reporter was already there, camera poised. I walked forward, the sound of my heels echoing sharply across the marble floor, slicing through the chaos like a knife. Jason spotted me first. His eyes lit up as if he'd just found the spark he needed to fuel his performance. Alice, finally decided to come face your own flesh and blood, he growled, ignoring the cameras. Does that make you feel proud now? I stopped in front of them, standing tall, gaze cold as steel. I didn't answer immediately. I looked around at the faces watching, the cameras rolling, and even the people who once doubted me. Then I turned back, looking directly at the 2 people who used to call themselves my parents. You're not my parents anymore. Not because I turned away, but because you chose that 20 years ago when you left me like garbage next to a vending machine. Linda began to wail louder, clutching her chest. What are you saying, Alice? We're blood. I gave birth to you. How can you be this cruel? I didn't blink. Blood? Blood that made their daughter walk 6 miles under the summer sun because she missed the bus? Blood that locked her outside in a thunderstorm? Blood that spread lies and sent social media to attack her just because she refused to give you money. Jason snapped. You think money made you a person? You've forgotten who you are. Everything you have is because we raised you. I laughed. A sharp, contemptuous sound that echoed through the lobby like a slap. Raised me? You left me when I was 16. The one who raised me was Aunt Elaine. And me. Working 3 jobs, sleeping in smelly dorms, living on instant noodles. You didn't raise me. You starved me. Body and soul. Linda sobbed harder, glancing quickly toward the camera as if waiting for a close-up. Then she shakily stood up, reaching out to touch my arm. Sweetheart, I know sometimes we were too strict, but now we just need a chance, just a little help. Then things will get better. I stepped back, my voice firm as stone. I don't help people who abandon me. I don't fund those who exploit my past for pity. And I don't forgive lies. I turned to security. Remove them from the building. If they come back, call the police. Jason lunged forward, shouting, "You'll regret this, Alice. We made you. You're my flesh and blood." I didn't turn, didn't flinch. I walked straight toward the elevator, my footsteps steady, like the heartbeat of someone who had just cut out the final tumor from their life. As the doors closed, I saw Linda struggling, yanking at the guard's arm, her tears still refusing to fall. Jason was still shouting something I no longer cared to hear. The doors shut. All the noise behind me vanished. And for the first time, I felt like I had locked the past away for good. The lawsuit lasted nearly 4 months. 4 months of every document, every memory, every old wound being dragged into the light. But then justice spoke, blunt, cold, and final. The court ruled Alice Holloway has no financial obligation to Jason and Linda Holloway. No support, no responsibility, no legal ties whatsoever. I sat silently in the courtroom, hands clasped, no shaking, no tears. I just breathed one deep breath, like I had just swam to the surface after 20 years of being drowned. The following week, headlines exploded across the media. Titles competed for drama. Parents sued daughter for refusing support. Bitter defeat. Manufactured victimhood. When parents fake it for sympathy. Alice Holloway, a symbol of survival from emotional abuse. Aldera's reputation rebounded quickly. Clients returned in waves. Investors called to apologize. Even charitable organizations invited me to speak at conferences on family boundaries and personal autonomy. And Jason and Linda? They lost their home, lost their image, lost the sympathy they once exploited with crocodile tears. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just felt quiet. One Saturday morning, while watering my balcony plants at my high-rise apartment in downtown Orlando, my phone rang. Once again, a familiar name appeared, Vivian. I hesitated for a second. Then I picked up. Alice. I'm sorry. Her voice was hoarse, choked like someone who had cried too much. I stayed silent, letting her continue. They've really lost everything. The house was taken by the bank. Dad drinks all day now, slumped outside a cheap motel room. Mom just lies in bed, not saying a word. They have no one left. They still have you, I said calmly. Vivian's voice broke. But I don't have the strength, no money, no means. Alice, if you could just a little help, a small room, some living expenses. I took a deep breath. Vivian, I don't hate you. I don't even hate them. But I can't do to myself what they once did to me. Abandon myself to save someone else. But they're still our parents, no matter what. No. I cut in, for the first time, speaking with complete clarity. They were my parents, but they gave up that role long ago. I can't rescue a ship that steered itself into the rocks and then blame myself for not jumping into the sea. Vivian didn't respond. Only the sound of wind slipping through the phone like a quiet sigh. I'm sorry, but I've chosen to keep my boundary, and I won't break it again. I hung up. My heart didn't feel light. It didn't feel heavy either. It just felt real. The next day, I drove out of the city, down quiet country roads toward Gainesville. The only place I was ever called someone's girl, the place where I could sleep peacefully without fear of being woken in the middle of the night for a character lesson. I arrived at Aunt Elaine's house in the late afternoon. She was sitting under the porch, eyes half closed, a mug of herbal tea on the old wooden table. Alice. She opened her eyes and smiled, warm as sunlight. I walked up, knelt beside her, and hugged her thin arm. I'm home, Auntie. I knew you'd come back eventually. She gently stroked my hair. Because in the end, we all returned to where we were. Once loved. We sat there for a long time, not speaking. No need to. Only the breeze and the fading light, carrying away the dust of the past. That night, I took her out to her favorite Mexican restaurant. She ordered 2 margaritas, then raised her glass. To freedom. And to my girl, who learned how to choose herself without asking for permission. I clinked my glass with hers, a soft smile on my lips. For the first time in 20 years, I no longer carried the urge to prove anything to anyone. No longer the abandoned child. No longer the adult trying to save the ones who once hurt her. Just me. A free woman, living truthfully and owing nothing to anyone. My story isn't one of complaints. It's a reminder that sometimes, to live honestly, we must walk away from those labeled family. I've learned that blood doesn't guarantee love. And forgiveness doesn't mean allowing the pain to continue. Letting go isn't weakness. It's the choice to choose peace over repeating cruelty. I'm no longer the abandoned girl. I'm a survivor, and now I live with full ownership of my life. What do you think about my story? Should boundaries within family be upheld, even if it comes at such a cost? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about life and choosing your own path.